Welcome back, everyone. If you already haven't subscribed, definitely subscribe. Today we're going to review all the fundamentals that came out this week. We're going to talk about where the market could head and why. And then I'm also going to talk about next week and basically how to prepare for our outlook. For anyone that's been following me for a while, you know I mostly trade EURUSD. Lately I've added GBP USD to that list, so I trade two pairs now. Either way, the most important thing for me right now is understanding where the DXY is heading, as it's gonna tell us where all the other asset classes are heading. So we'll review both the fundamentals and the technicals, and we'll try to make some sense of all this. So this week, guys, all the US dollar news for the most part came out weak. What that means is more consolidation, as you see here. So price never really broke out of this range. As you've seen, all pairs were consolidating quite a bit this week. I was hoping for a stronger ISM manufacturing. And my expectation was for price to just continue if that came out stronger. That didn't happen. So for next week, what I'm looking at is there's a couple of Powell speeches and there is NFP. So I believe until those news happen, we're going to keep ranging. Now, depending what kind of sentiment Powell gives us, if he sends the dollar down, my expectation would be it's going to rebalance the daily range to continue. I'm not ready to rule out a stronger dollar for longer yet. That'll be dependent on what we get next week, and we'll talk about that in a sec. Let's actually just have a look at our session recaps here. So for the most part, everything came out bearish news-wise. Obviously, our PMI, University of Michigan consumer sentiment, all that stuff. Most of the news came out bearish this week. That's not really a big deal. And the reason it's not a big deal is these aren't the news that move the market. So you can kind of see where the market starts moving. And anytime the market moves, it's usually CPI, NFP, or anything to do with jobs or Powell will drive the market. So NFP breaks us out of a range, CPI breaks us out of a range. My expectation is next week either Powell or NFP is going to break us out of the range. So all these news, while they all came out bearish for the dollar, they didn't really have any sway. And what I mean by that is price just kind of ranged. It didn't have enough push to push this down. Whereas if we had, one bearish news from Powell or NFP or CPI, price would have gone down quite a bit more. So even everything came out bearish. Our bullish arguments are all the FOMC members. Now I personally don't go listening to all these guys. I just wait for Powell because he just kind of says what the whole board says. And all these guys are in on the board meetings. So they're all going to have a pretty similar outlook to what Powell's going to give us next week. And essentially the message has been the same. We're going to wait for 2% inflation before we start cutting rates. And until they start cutting rates, I don't think the dollar is going to lose steam. Again, NFP, jobs dependent. NFP's next week. So we'll see what happens. Overall, you could see how most of the stuff came out fairly bearish for the dollar, but it didn't have like a huge impact. When I say it didn't have a huge impact, you could clearly see it just ranged. All right, so for our next week outlook, and this is all our news too, what I was talking about. So durable goods came out bearish. Consumer confidence came out bearish. Again, these aren't heavyweight news. None of this really matters. GDP. Oh, that's Canadian GDP, my bad. This is the American one. Came out a little lower than expected, not enough to matter. If this number was way lower, it would have made a difference. It didn't come out that different. Next thing we get is the core PCE. Came out as expected pretty much. Unemployment claims came out a little higher than expected, or a little lower than expected. So that means the Fed policies are working. And our last one, our ISM manufacturing. So when this number comes in lower or below 50, it can hold quite a bit of weight. Obviously, it didn't have as much weight as we thought on Friday, which kind of just kept the price ranging. And the only reason I can see price had to range is because we have Powell once, we have Powell twice, then we have unemployment and NFP. And obviously our North America shifts their daylight savings times next week. For those of you that trade Euro next week, you're going to have the Euro monetary policy statement. She's going to say something along the lines of, we're not ready to cut the interest rates. Earliest we're cutting is probably the end of summer. That'll make Euro bullish likely that day. And then depending what Powell says an hour and a half later, it might do something different. So this could be a very volatile day, especially for those of us that trade Euro USD. So on this day, I will not be holding my trades and looking for them to go to the moon. I will be TPing quicker, and I'm just going to secure my profits. Jolts might make a difference. Overall, not a big deal. But again, I'll be listening to Powell's speeches. It's pretty much the only board member you need to listen to. If you don't want to listen to him, tune into our recaps, and I'll tell you what he said. So overall, there really isn't much to say to you guys. I'm not really going to read all this. Anybody that wants to, you can pause the video and read it. And what did we have here? Again, none of this stuff really matters. The only stuff I'd really be concerned about is what these guys are saying. And they're essentially just telling you what Powell's going to say next week, because he says what these guys say. Let's see, Lagarde. What's she saying? Yeah, so she's basically saying they don't need to do anything until they hit their 2% target. So same as Powell. They probably get the same person to help them write these, because, man, they sure sound alike. German retail sales doesn't matter. CBI doesn't matter. This one here, so for those that trade the yen, that might have mattered to you. Aside from that, nothing was really important this week. This one I was really hoping to see come in above 50, which would have been a stronger dollar, which would have been in line with our analysis last week. Realigned us with that. We didn't get that. So overall, we just, like I said, we ranged. So I'm going to wait for next week. I'm going to wait for Powell. I'm going to wait for NFP. Depending on those numbers, my expectation will be either price does this, rebalances, continues up, or obviously, depending on what kind of sentiment we get, these would be kind of the scenarios. I'm not going to make any predictions right now, because when the market consolidates, you really don't want to predict. You just want to see how the market reacts. And essentially, once the market reacts, we go in that direction. So you can see how this works. Every time there's an impulse, price generally continued in that direction. So we're looking for that next impulse to give us a sense of where the dollar's heading. Once you know where the dollar's heading, you understand where the rest of the US majors are heading. But yeah, as of right now, this is likely consolidating or bearish. And obviously next week we will update that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, guys. Tune in next Sunday. We'll have some better news to go over, and maybe we can do a full technical analysis along with the fundamentals based on what we get. As of this week, there's really not a lot to give you guys based on the data I got. So we'll tune in again next week. Have a great rest of your day, guys.